Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am doing a VR response. I guess it's kind of a hashtag to the lovely Diane, aka Indigo Moon Woman. Her video actually came from one created by Hermits Cave called My Circle of Friends, which was around tarot decks, and I watched quite a few of them, enjoyed them, but didn't feel called to do the video for the tarot in particular because I use most of my decks. I use all of my decks in quite a versatile way. However, I felt it was much easier for me personally to categorise my oracle decks than it would be my tarot. And so when Diane created the Circle of Friends but oracle version, I decided to jump on in. Thank you, Amber, for doing a response because that's where I saw it, and then I went and watched Diane's and they were both really good. Let me know below if you've done this video. I actually had a really hard time finding any. I don't know why. I tried it in a hashtag as a title, so if you have participated in either the tarot or the oracle, I would love to know. I have my 5 decks out already. I think this is pretty common to say that even with these decks, I still found it difficult to put it into one category, and some of these covered at least 2 or 3, but I will go into the reasons why I've chosen them for what I have. There's 5 categories, and first up is Brutally Honest. So for this I've chosen my deck Oracle of the Shapeshifters, and this is the back of them, although the backs are different depending on what edition you got. There's a few reasons that I picked this deck in particular. I just want to read you some of the keywords underneath first. We've got a twist in the towel, the unexpected change you did not see coming. The delicate fairy and her ferrets. Change is natural good, and yes, it can hurt. Kitsune, I will show you whom to trust. Sacred beetle armour, you have a mighty shield. Beauty and the Beast, you need some space in a relationship. So you can see already from, well, hopefully, from the keywords and the way that they're phrased, that this deck in particular has a lot of balance in it, what a lot of people refer to as shadow and light. There's a lot of truth of the things that we deal with in everyday, things like difficulties in relationships, trust issues, feeling down, feeling depressed, needing to learn something, going through hardships, losing people, every array of emotion. It feels like this deck touches on so much of it, including the good stuff. And when I've pulled myself cards from this, even on a whim when I'm feeling somewhat, I guess, playful, chilled out, they are always brutally honest. I say this often about this deck. I really feel that it's underrated. I don't hear about it too often, and it's given me and some other people that I know some really quite profound readings. And that's whether you choose to go based on the message alone and what builds from that, or to utilise the book. And the book in itself is a really, really interesting resource. It's got 3 sections for each card. They're really wordy, they're very valuable, and I feel like this deck is written so that the meanings are very specific, rather than it being a deck where all the card meanings feel so vague and similar that it wouldn't matter what one you pulled. This deck is going to tell you what shit's going down. So that's why I picked this one for my Brutally Honest. The next category is Wise Mentor, and this deck really crossed over into a few other categories. I feel like this one would have fit incredibly well with Brutally Honest and with the funny one. However, considering all three of those categories, I felt like this was best suited to Wise Mentor. And this, for anyone who doesn't recognise it, is the Faeries Oracle by the epic Brian Froud. And the reason that I chose this for Wise Mentor is because I find working with Fae energy particularly powerful, particularly deep, healing, and quite a learning experience. And I guess when I think of Wise Mentor, I think of learning things and developing, evolving, pushing the boundaries, all of those kind of juicy things that I enjoy doing. And whilst the Fae do have me in absolute fits of giggles sometimes, there's definitely a depth to their message. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. Again, it's a very balanced deck, which people are probably bored of hearing me say. I like balanced decks, if you didn't know. The book is a resource beyond any other resource apart from my medicine cards. I feel like those two books are just full of juicy goodness, and whilst I don't always read it by any stretch of the imagination, I love the book even on its own. It's like they're separate entities that can be intertwined, and that in itself feels like there was a degree of study and meditation that went into the production of this deck in particular. I actually have both of the fairy decks. This one is simply the Faeries Oracle, and then there's the Heart of Fairy Oracle. I find that this one feels much more like a Wise Mentor to me than the other one. I find the other one, it's not that it's day to day, but I do feel that there's more humour in the other one, or there's something more playful about it than there is this one. But I guess that's just my personal perception of the two decks. They do feel somewhat different to me. And therefore this one, cheeky fairies and all, has been my Wise Mentor for sure. Next up we have Polar Opposite. So what is my Polar Opposite? And this is the first deck that came to mind. I feel it was still a bit difficult. This is Nature's Whispers. There's a few reasons that I've picked this one, and I'll show you some cards and you'll probably kind of get it. But I don't feel that it's completely my polar opposite, but out of all of the decks I have, it's the closest to them. And the reason being is it's a very, very gentle deck. Affirmative, sometimes I call it a hug deck, sometimes I call it a fluffy deck. It does feel more balanced than some of the other ones that I've seen that I would refer to as fluffy and hug decks. And that's not taking anything away from them, it's just the category that I feel those decks fall into. I don't have a desire to own lots of those decks. However, the artwork, Josephine Wall's artwork, is delicious. It is gorgeous. And I got this deck from Glastonbury. So I was feeling very in touch with magic, I guess. There's no really other word for it. I bought this in the shop at the Chalicewell Gardens, and it feels more like that. So there is this really big connection, but even when I brought it home, I did look at the artwork and I thought on a more of a, if you look at me on a superficial level, I wear a lot of black, you know, all of those kind of things. I guess kind of the opposite to what Diane said, because she chose a vampire deck and she was saying that she's not really into Halloween and she's quite colourful and stuff. My exterior isn't very colourful. I'm heavily into Halloween and black is my favourite colour, although people argue that it's not a colour. And this is very, very bright and cheerful. Also, on another level, I feel like whilst obviously I like to think that I can be gentle and nurturing and empathic, I would hope so given my job, but I am used to tough love, and I guess that and I don't mean aggressive tough love, I just mean tough love. And I don't feel like there's much tough love in this deck. I feel that it strokes your head and it soothes your tummy and it rocks you and it kind of gives you a cuddle. And that is exactly what I need sometimes. This is my, if I'm crying and I dare pull a card out when I'm at my worst, this is the deck that I come to. Now, the reason that I don't feel it's my complete polar opposite is because, as my partner likes to say, there is a bit of a princess inside of me. It's kind of a running joke. I actually love colourful stuff, just not on my person. So I don't seem like a very colourful person, but I have a unicorn collection and a Pokemon collection. I'm just a giant child. So there is that playfulness within me, and therefore it doesn't quite qualify as my polar opposite, but it definitely, in the way that it presents itself, is probably the closest that we're going to get. I just feel like I have to add, though, that this deck is still loved and treasured, otherwise I simply wouldn't own it. So there's definitely something to be said for having a deck that is your polar opposite, that can kind of bring you, I guess, that yin yang if you're one and the deck is the other, that when you're unable, maybe I'm less able to give this to myself, which is probably true, coming to think about it, then this is going to encourage me to provide that to myself. Now we're on to the funny one. This was pretty easy, however, this is the Rebel deck. There isn't, I can't really show you the backs because there's writing on both sides. This could fall into Brutally Honest as well, but I wanted a bit more depth for my Brutally Honest, and this deck makes me laugh constantly. I use this one for live Instagram pulls quite regularly, and I also have a reading in my shop called Truth Bomb where I use this and another deck. And it does just, it's kind of a kick up the arse with a smile and a giggle. You know, like if you're having a really shit time and someone says, come on, you need to pull yourself out of this, seriously. But they're not coming down on you like a ton of bricks in a judgmental way, but they want to be there for you. They want to cheer you up, see you smile, hear you giggle again. This is kind of how I feel with this deck, and it seems to get that response as well. So be fucking grateful. Shit could be so much worse. Ain't that the truth? This is just a brilliant, brilliant deck. Obviously, if you don't like cussing, probably not your thing. I kind of get bored of saying it because it's very unlikely you follow my channel if you don't like the occasional swear word. But just in case, I didn't really pre-warn you, so sorry. Aside from that, it's very, very colourful and it does just bring me a lot of joy. I have had two really funny experiences with this deck, and I shared one of them before, but in case you didn't see that video, I'll share it again, and I'll share the other one as well. I'll see if I can find the cards. I know what colour they are. I'm looking for an orange card. Right, well, let's start with this one. When I got this deck and I won this, I was very, very fortunate and super psyched because it was, I think 3 people were picked out of hundreds, I'm sure, and that's incredibly lucky. And I gave it a shuffle and said to my partner, come on, you'll like this deck, you've got to pick a card. And so I fanned them out, white side up, because it's harder to, not that he would know, but it's harder to pick. And he pulled this one out. Now my partner doesn't eat vegetables apart from peas or sweet corn, and I'm talking occasionally. You do not see this man eat fruit or anything else otherwise. Anyway, he pulled this card, and it says, "Eat your fucking vegetables, eat some shit made by Mother Nature." And he turned around and looked at me and said, "You put it there, you made me pick that one." I said, "I really didn't. I promise you I didn't." I said, "I just shuffled, found them out. You picked your card, man. You know, I'm not moaning at you. The cards are." So that was a pretty funny one, although probably, here we go, more funny for me and him. This one is the one that tends to make other people laugh. My nan's a pretty good sport in the grand scheme of things, in that she will at least feign an interest in the things that me and my cousins are doing, and we're all incredibly different as well. And I decided to take this deck with me round her house. When I visit her, I always take a deck with me because I usually travel with one anyway. I like to pull cards in her garden because it's quite beautiful. And I said, "This is a really funny deck, Nan. I just won this. Pull a card." And she pulled this one. And it says, "You look like a shit show. You're a hot mess. Fact. Clean yourself up." And she turned round and she said to me, "I think I like your other deck better." Which, a couple of weeks before, I'd taken a plant deck there, and we both really love plants. She's an avid gardener. It was really funny because she didn't genuinely get offended, but she just looked gobsmacked, and she was like, "Yeah, not so keen on that one." So this deck, I tell you, take it to a bar if you go out drinking with friends, or if you don't and you're like me, you have to take it to your family's house, providing you're safe and comfortable enough to do so. Honestly, it's worth it. It is a good laugh, and that is why I chose it for this one. Then last but certainly not least, we have the loyal friend. And I know you're rolling your eyes, especially my dear, dear, dear friend. And she will know who she is because I think she's kind of sick of seeing this deck. She recently, when I was on a live, said, "What are your top, I don't know, 3 Oracle decks, but you can't include the medicine cards," because it's kind of become a given. These are the backs of the medicine card. As most of you know, I grew up with this deck, and it was difficult not to put it in the Wise Mentor. But then I didn't feel like anything else qualified for loyal best friend. Nothing else comes close to this deck. I genuinely have an emotional attachment to this deck, and I don't think that attachment comes from working with cards, if I'm honest. That attachment comes from working with animals and having a positive attachment with them as a child when maybe other attachments weren't so much. That's from working with animal medicine being such a big part of my life always. I feel like I was asked a question about what my magic is and how to define it, and it took me a while, and I was thinking, a lot of people kind of laugh and call me Snow White, and I always am found crouched somewhere whispering away to a wild animal that's appeared out of nowhere that for some reason they always, oops, my bad, for some reason they grace me with their presence, and it's just wonderful and fascinating, and I feel incredibly fortunate. And I feel like if that's a magic to have, then it definitely runs in my family. Both my parents, in very different ways, because they weren't actually together very long at all. And they separated when I was about 2, I think. But they both have this animal magic running through them. And this deck I've had since I was too young to remember how old I was. My mum had the original print, then obviously the revised come out. I don't know if it was the original or the revised, but one of them came out the year that I was born as well. So I'm like, damn, this is meant to be my deck. And I have honestly worked with this deck since I was very, 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 very young. This is a a really amazing way that allowed me an insight into animal medicine and how to understand the messages that animals bring by considering lots of different aspects about their behaviour and their environment. Jamie Sams is amazing and I respect a lot of what she does anyway. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much more because I can feel myself going off on a really nostalgic tangent, but whilst I like to work with the animals that present themselves to me, this deck has always been an amazing way to work with other animals, to teach me, and I mean, it looks pretty good for its age, but I do have a backup because I use the backup with clients. It's getting pretty worn. It's loved, this deck. It is loved. And if my house was on fire after I'd rescued the peeps and the animals in it, if I had time, I would genuinely come back for this deck. Because whilst I know that currently it's still available, I've had this one for such a long time. So it is an incredibly loyal best friend for sure. Which feels really weird saying that about a material item, but you know, I'm not one to generally add personalities and things like that to material objects, but this is a forever deck for me. So thank you to Diane for spinning off of Simon's tag and creating the Oracle version, because as I say, I could sit down and do it with tarot if I really, really wanted to, but I want to make sure that when I'm doing videos and I'm putting them out there for you, that I'm excited about them and I wanted to sit down and create them. And when I saw the Oracle one, I was like, yes, I can categorise my oracles with pleasure. That's it really. If you didn't do a video and you simply want to leave in the comments your list as well, I'd love to hear still. It's nice to hear from you guys, even if you don't have a platform and you're genuinely quite quiet on here. I like to encourage you to speak and have a voice, so comment below and you'll know that 99% of the time I respond to comments, and usually if I don't, then it's just YouTube or me being a human, but as a general rule I try and get back to everyone. So thank you for watching and I'll catch you all again soon. Bye for now.